Okay guys, today we're going to show you an in-depth video on how exactly we tie our fishing rigs. And I know there's going to be some people going, oh my God, it's overkill. Everything we do has a purpose. And we can take one basic rig and make 3 different setups out of it. We're going to go into a lot of detail today and show you exactly what it takes to put monsters like this in the Mississippi in your boat. Stick with us. That one, if you're sitting there saying, well, that one wasn't a monster. Well, what about this one? Stick around, guys. We're going to show you all our rigging secrets, how we do it, today's video. Well, hey guys, we really hope you enjoyed seeing those big old catfish. You know, it took us so long to learn how to put those things in the boat. I mean, we were getting so frustrated not knowing what the heck we were doing. You know, the catfish community has been so incredible to us, taking us under their wing as a collective community. And there are some standout individuals that, I mean, just Chris Souders let us get on his boat in Ohio and go catch flatheads with him. Chris Stout took us out one Sunday and spent all day with us. And I got to give a really huge shout out to a very, very good friend of ours and really our personal catfishing mentor. Justin Boardfield has taught us so much in the catfish world, and we wouldn't be anywhere close to the fishermen that we are without him. But even with all those people individually helping us, and there's others too, right? I don't mean to omit names and leave people out. There's so many. I've had conversations with Daryl Massengale, and just there's so many people. But when it came to figuring out the minute details, the minutia of everything, man, there wasn't a lot of information. I struggled. I was looking all over, and I finally found this obscure video on Twisted Cat Outdoors' channel, and I got to give credit where credit's due. Wade Kaminsky and Jake Derhocky had put this video out about crimping leaders and pre-tying rigs and all this stuff, and man, it was mind-blowing to us. I mean, I had no idea any of this stuff existed, and so I started learning so much, and I started learning about pre-tying rigs, and we're going to show you our storage system at the end of this video, how we manage all these rigs we tie. And why do we do that? Because, well, you break off constantly when you're catfishing. I mean, if you're not fishing structure where you're getting hung up all the time, pretty much, you're pretty much not fishing where the catfish are. You know, this is a lot of things that we learned along the way. I mean, catfish relate to structure almost like bass relate to structure. And they're in big log jams and big rocky revetment things and just nasty, gnarly crap that you look at it on the depth finder and you go, I don't even know if I want to fish that. I'm going to lose every bit of tackle I got. Well, guess what? If you want to catch the big catfish, that's where they're at. And so I remember our very first tournament, we didn't know anything about pre-tying rigs. We didn't know anything about storage or anything like that. And we would break off and, well, man, there was another 10 minutes that we were tying everything by hand in the back of our boat. And literally 10 minutes would go by, and then, you know, we'd fish for 15 minutes and break off again, and there's another 10 minutes of retying. You break off 5 times in a tournament on a Saturday, there's 50 minutes of time. That's a lot of fishing time, guys. So we're going to show you our rigs. We're going to show you why we make them up ahead of time like that because of what I just said. We're going to show you how we store them, and we're going to show you all the things. Like I said, we learned a lot from that video with Wade and Jake. But we have personalized it. We've added our little twist to things. And basically what we've come up with is a very much a methodical system that basically we build everything the same with a little bit of tweak here and there, and we get 3, almost 4 fishing rigs out of the same setup. So what I mean by 3, almost 4? Well, we get our bumping rigs out of it. And what I mean by that, this is our bumping rig. And so you'll see it starts off with a 3-way swivel, and it's to a mono dropper that's about 12, 13, 14 inches. These vary, and we will change them throughout the course of a day depending on what the fish want. And it goes to a duo snap clip, and that's where we snap on like a cannonball weight. And then our main line is an 80-pound leader going down to a ball chain swivel, and then it goes into, on this particular rig, an inline rattle. And we buy these. I'm going to go over everything, all of our components here, where we get them from. In fact, we're going to have a link to every piece of the components, every component here, every piece of the equipment, we're going to have a link in the description to that, or you can just click on it and go straight to the source and buy it the same place we do. And then it goes down to a Snell 10-aught Boss Cat hook. So this is predominantly and primarily, this is our bumping rig. We do alter it a little bit. This is one of them. You saw in that very first clip, and I'm going to set this to the side, that very first clip, the smaller of the two catfish that you guys saw in the intro, you saw this rig. And this is the second bumping rig that we primarily use, where instead of that inline rattle, like this, and this is one I saved from a rig that we broke off one time, so you can save a lot of the parts and pieces. So the inline rattle we use a lot. We also use this knockoff Demon Dragon a lot. And the reason we use a knockoff Demon Dragon, we buy these blanks from Amazon.com, and we're going to show you how we configure, how we get these blanks ready to use in this state. Again, we hope you take this video and tweak, twist, fine-tune it, personalize it, make it yours. But I'm going to give you the foundation. I would love to have had a video like this and say, okay, I like that. I'm going to change this and make it mine. That's what we hope you do with this video. But we're going to show you how we get these blanks ready to use on this rig. And these Amazon, basically Zero Spook or Demon Dragon, we call them Demon Dragons in the catfishing world. My personal belief, it's the same thing as the Zero Spook topwater lure in the bass world, right? But maybe there's some difference. Someone can correct me in the comments down below. But a Demon Dragon, a true Demon Dragon, is like $3 or $4 a piece. And again, we break off rigs all the time, right? Because we're fishing gnarly, nasty stuff. And every time I lose one of these, not counting the hook, the swivels, the ball chain, everything else, I mean, you got a real Demon Dragon there for $3 or $4 a piece. It can get expensive if you start losing rigs all the time. So we figured out, we found these blanks on Amazon, and we started running these and configuring these, and they're like 80 cents a piece. Significant cost savings over a $3 or $4 real bona fide official Demon Dragon, right? Now, I will tell you that, in fact, I'm going to reach over here. I realize I'm leaving my camera here, but if you listen real carefully, this is a real bona fide Demon Dragon. It's got a lot of rattle in it. This is the Amazon knockoff. There's a big difference there, right? I don't know if you can hear that. And I'm shaking them just as hard, guys. So, here's the thing. That first fish that you saw in the intro, I caught him on this rig, right? That was just pre-fishing. That was 4 days ahead of the tournament. It was just fun fishing, right? We were just trying to locate fish. We were fishing some nasty stuff. I was fishing this rig, just saving some money, right? Tournament day, guess what I caught that big boy on? The real deal, right? So we kind of learned to be smart about it. If we're just fun fishing, if we're fishing nasty stuff, we'll tie on one of these rigs. If we're after some serious money, thousands of dollars that's up for grabs in a payday, I'm probably going to be grabbing the real deal, right? But again, so those are our bumping rigs. We have the inline rattle and we have the Demon Dragon. Those are our bumping rigs. That's number one, and number two sort of together, okay? The other thing we can do is we can snap on a duo clip here and turn this into our anchor rig. And we were going to put a big old coin sinker right there, and we'll show you that here in a second. We can make an anchor rig out of this. Or the third thing that we can do is we can make a dragging rig out of it. We went to Lake Nickajack a couple years ago. There's not enough current to bump like we love to do, and if you're wondering what's bumping, we'll explain all that to you in a little bit. But we were in Lake Nickajack. There's not enough current to bump there. What we did is we pulled planer boards, we drug baits, and with that we use big old dragon weights like this. So we can actually put that duo clip on here. We're going to show you how that works later on in this video, and put a big old dragon weight in here, and we drag this over the rocks and the stumps, and this thing just drags along. It will go over and not get hung up, and then this will float up behind it, and it keeps it from snagging. So this one rig, what we can do is we make our bumping rigs, a couple different variations or versions of it. We make our anchor rigs and we make our dragging rigs. So we get all that out of one different type of one set of leaders and everything. There's not a lot of variation, but we can do a lot with it. So what we're going to do, guys, is go over all the major components of our rigs, and starting off with this kind of a nifty little tackle box here that I picked up from Harbor Freight for like 10 bucks. And obviously you can see it stores a lot of our gear. Now I've got some excess stuff on a pegboard on hooks over there off to the right off camera, but this was invaluable to me before we were able to build our shop, and I'm so blessed with the space. You can see I come out here at night sometimes and just build rigs up to certain points. I may build, you know, steps 2 and 3 or whatever, and just build a bunch of them out here, just relax and just let my mind unwind after a long day in a corporate world, right? And so, but before I had this dedicated space just to come over here, piddle, and then just leave it at this stage, I had to build all my rigs downstairs or in our house. And when you're in your house, you can't just let stuff sit, as much as my wife thinks I probably do all the time. And I do leave stuff on the kitchen table for a long time, especially during bow season. So sorry, honey. But I try to get the stuff out, build my rigs, and then put it back up, right? That's what we should do. And this little tackle box was invaluable for that. And so it comes with all these little bins and dividers, and it pretty much holds everything that we use. And so let's go over each component. Again, we're going to have a link down in the description linking you directly to where we buy from. Some things we buy off Amazon.com. Some things I buy directly from the manufacturer. So we'll link to that, but we'll go over this real quickly. These little duo snap links, these are invaluable. Some people will make a dropper loop and then like girth hitch their sinker over that dropper loop. We found that to be really cumbersome and quite frankly hard to do out sometimes, you know, if you're cold with cold fingers or whatever. These little snap clips, these dual snap clips are so handy. They're just a lot easier to use. So this is what we settled in. Again, personalize it for you is what this video is all about. And then we finish off our rigs with these 3-way, some people call them crane swivels or a 3-way swivel. They're made to with one swivel coming off the other side, and so that's the 3-way swivel. That one is rated to 165 pounds. So that's what we connect our main line to the leader with, and then we use a ton of these number 2 barrel swivels. It's like half of the 3-way swivel, if that makes sense. So these are number 2 swivels that are rated to 156 pounds. Every component that we use basically is 100-pound break strength or up, right? So, and then this is full of a bunch of Boss Cat Super Circle hooks. We really love that hook. We're going to show you how we start off with this hook in a little bit, but we buy these 200 at a time. They come in bags like this. We buy them from TTI Blakemore, 200 at a time for 90 bucks. I think that's a heck of a price, and that's the last time I bought was probably a couple months ago, so that price may have went up a little bit, I don't know, but somewhere in that area. So again, Boss Cat 10-aught hooks. And then we use a lot of these little sinker stoppers, little rubber ball. I've got a hole through it, and you can put your line through it, and I buy these in bulk as well. I buy these from Tackle Direct. And then these inline rattles, I buy these in bulk as well, and I buy these from Macy's Fish and Finds. And to be honest with you, I wish I could buy everything. And Macy's Fish, you could probably build a complete rig just from stuff from Macy's Fish and Finds, but I've just kind of settled on, I've got a preference of some things over others, and that's why I ended up sourcing things from 3 or 4 different spots. But the reason why I say I wish I liked everything as well that I could get from Macy's Fish and Finds, because they're awesome people. They provide incredible customer service. It's where we buy a regulator for our oxygen tank. We bought a lot of stuff from those guys, and I just got to put a plug in for those. Even though this is one of like the few things that I've been buying here recently from them, they are awesome people. I'm thinking there's something else that I buy from them as well, but we'll get into it later if I do. But inline rattles, and then these ball chain swivels. We buy these directly from Ball Chain Manufacturing. I think they might be out of, I can't remember if they're out of Memphis, Tennessee or not, but we buy them directly from them in bulk. And this is like, let's see, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a 6-ball chain swivel. And the reason we put these on every single rig, no matter how we vary the rig, our rigs will always include one of these. And most tournament catfishermen that are going after 60, 70 plus pound fish incorporate one of these somewhere into their rig. Because once you start catfishing, you'll realize that especially these 20, 30, and 40 pound fish, they roll like crazy as they're coming up. They're fighting, they're rolling, and the more swivel points, and we put these in here, that gives 6 swivel points plus all the other swivels we build into our rigs as well. We've got multiple swivel points throughout our rigs, because as these fish roll, it's just, you want peace of mind that your rig can handle it. And the big, huge fish, the 60s and 70s on up, they don't roll as much as it seems like, in my opinion. They don't roll as much as the 20s and the 30s. But when one of those big boys do roll, you want to have reassurance that your rig can handle it. So these things are rated to roughly 110 pounds or so. Again, every component is 100 pounds and above. So again, we'll link to every single thing that we've got here laid out, but everything that I showed you there, I pretty much have a pile of, because when I come out here, maybe after dinner again one night or something, I just want to sit down and start building. And the foundation for building our rigs is this Berkley Trilene big game. It's 80-pound mono. I've been a fan of Trilene for years and years and years and years. I got to start studying some of the early catfishing videos before. Some of the guys that are big names in the industry now they're sponsored by, you know, catfish companies, right? They're promoting a catfish line. I went back and found some of their early videos, and guess what they were using? Trilene. And so I grew up with Trilene too. I think it's a phenomenal line. We use 80-pound mono for our leaders. We actually use 65-pound braid for our main line when we're bumping. And bumping is a technique. We're going to show you a little bit of that here in a little bit about how that works. But we're basically standing on the back of the boat going downstream with the river, but we use our trolling motor behind us to cut the speed, half the speed of the current. So if the current is 2 miles an hour, we're drifting with the river, but 1 mile an hour. And that allows us to stand on the back of the boat and we feed our line out. We free spool our spool and we thumb it down, and we're feeding that line out slowly in reverse backwards. So think of if a bass fisherman would cast out with a plastic worm and reel that worm really slowly and feel that bait, that worm weight on the bottom as they drug it to them, as they reeled it in. We're doing the same thing in reverse. And so it's really important, if you will, to feel every bump, every log, every riprap, rock, things like that. A lot of times my son and I will stand on opposite sides of the boat. He's on one side, I'm on the other, and we will use line counters. We can actually see how far our bait is out by the line counter. We're at 200, 220, 230, whatever. And I'll tell him, or he'll tell me, like, I just went through a big old log at 230. And so the next person might be at 170 because we might have different weights on. We might be going out at different speeds. It's just extremely important to get that instantaneous feedback. If a fish picks it up and swims a couple feet with it and then sets it down, we need to know that before he sets it down and we never felt him. Because if you had 300 foot of mono out, it stretches so bad you have never felt, you just don't get the instantaneous feedback. So, but the mono gives a lot better abrasion resistance of going through all that crap that we're going through. So that's the reason why we use braid up front and mono on the back as far as our rigs. We like 80-pound leaders. I like 65-pound braid because, quite frankly, we get hung up. I can't break anything off that's over 65. I mean, it's all I can do to break off a 65-pound line. So I'm not worried about losing a 100-pound fish on 65-pound braid, because unless he gets in something, he's not breaking off. That's why we have a drag, right? So again, we're going to start off with this. We're going to start with our 10-aught Boss Cat Super Circle hook, and then I'm going to start with a length of 80-pound braid. Now you'll see here, if you focus in, you'll see that there's 2 marks here. 2 marks have been made with Sharpies. In fact, if I grab a tape measure, these marks are 18 inches apart. And so, again, just kind of a workbench I built out here when we got the shop completed. And I just marked them right directly on the workbench. I can start this leader, this line, at 1 mark, hold it there, pull it down to the 2nd mark. Now I know I've got 18 inches of line here. Snip it with my fingernail clippers, move that back to the side, and I've got an 18-inch length of mono. I'm going to pick up my hook, and I'm going to show you guys, this is the snell knot that we prefer. We actually don't snell our hooks like 90% of the rest of the catfish world does. In other words, 90% of the catfish world uses 1 snell knot. We don't use that knot. We started off with that knot, and I quickly just became dissatisfied with it. I never was happy. I can't say I lost a fish with it, but just was never comfortable and 100% secure in how I felt about it, okay? So we came up with, we didn't come up with it. let me clarify that. A lot of people say that, you know, if you steal an idea from one person, that's theft, right? If you steal that idea from multiple people, that's research. We researched the heck out of catfishing rigs, and I discovered this knot. There's a couple key people out in the catfishing world, some legends, right, that use this knot, but there's very few, to be honest with you. And so hopefully you learned something today. Larry Muse is one of the guys that I really love that employs this knot, utilizes it on his own rigs. Hagen Grubbs is another guy. I love Hagen's videos. If you want to go see some great catfishing action, go subscribe to Hagen Grubbs. But this is the knot that we use, and I learned it from a couple of those guys. So we're going to take our line, and we're going to go in the back end of the eye of the hook, and I'm going to stick it out about 1 inch, and then I'm just going to grab the shank and the monofilament line and hold it with my thumb and forefinger, right? And I'm going to take it and run and grab the other end and make a circle and come back in through the front of the eye. And I'm going to stick it through about 1 inch, and now I can grab both the back tag end and plus my new tag end and hold them together with my thumb and forefinger. That leaves my pinky finger and index finger, middle finger together to kind of control that hook as I work with it. So now I can grab this line, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the hook eye and the shank just to get it started. Now I'm going to wrap 7 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Why did I do 7? Well, every place on the internet is like, wrap 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times. Nobody's specific. Well, if nobody's going to be specific, I thought I liked 7 because that's like the perfect number. That's God's number, right? So if it's good enough for God, it's good enough for our rigs too, right? So I'm going to put everything in our favor that we can. So I'm using God's number on the wraps of our Snell at 7 times, and now all I'm doing is just holding this big loop out that I've got left. See that tag end sticking out? I'm going to grab it with my teeth and pull. And I'm just going to pull that up against the shank, and it's going to leave that tag end sticking out there. And so I can pull, watch, I grab it and pull really super tight. That thing will not back off. I can clip it as tight as I want, clip it as close as I want to up to those wraps. And again, here's why I like this over that no snell knot that 90% of the catfish world uses. When they wrap those wraps down, and then they got to bring this line back up through the eye of the hook. What you do on the no snell knot is you bring it up on the outside of those wraps. So this line is lying on the outside, meaning it's exposed. It's free to get abraded, cut. Everything all that junk we're talking about that we go through as fishermen, as cat fishermen, we're pulling through like rocks and riprap and nasty crap and all that stuff. If you're outside that line that's laying over those coils comes in contact with it, you could cut it, and that's going to be a nick or a weak spot on that snell knot. You get a 60 or 70 on the line. You just don't want that. That's bad news, right? I want those coils covering that line, providing strength and integrity to your strongest part of the line that's going up through that way. Also notice, so that's number 1, is it covered, that line is on the inside of those wraps, not the outside. That's very important. Number 2, and most importantly for me though, is I can take this line now and push backwards. In fact, I'm doing it right now. I'm pushing backwards as much as I can. Those wraps will not come undone. If this was a no snell knot, again, like the majority of the catfishing world uses, if you push backwards against that, you will see those wraps expand. And that's the reason why, if you're using a no snell knot, you can't clip this tag in super tight because it may go over that and start unraveling itself. Is it really going to be a big problem? I can't say I ever lost a fish or if it was a problem in that regard, but man, it just gives me peace of mind that no matter what I do, whichever way I push against this knot, it will not come unwrapped, it will not loosen, it will not come undone. That snell knot is as secure a snell knot as is possible. So this is the reason why we use this wrap, okay? So now, we've used some of this 18 inches of line to make our snell. We clipped off a very, very small part. You may have seen I clipped off probably 3/16 of an inch. I mean, maybe 1/8 of an inch. I clipped off a very small part. Haven't hardly wasted anything. Now what we're going to do is grab a crimp. These crimps are from High Seas. This is a GSI, I believe. GSIs are made for 80-pound line. Again, we're going to have a description to the Amazon link in this video. We love crimps because could you tie knots with 80-pound line? Yeah, of course you could. But man, I tell you what, if you tie in 30, 40 knots in a night's time, it's going to get tiring on your hands. Also, I just don't believe it does as good a job tying knots as crimps do. You'll see how clean and efficient it is. So we're going to take this end of this leader of this line and we're going to stick it right inside that crimp. And I'm just going to pull this crimp down. Now I'm going to grab this number 2 barrel swivel. I'm going to go through the eye, let it slide on there, and then come back and stick it back through this crimp again. So all I did was go through the crimp, put the swivel on, and go back through the crimp here. Now this is the only part that I kind of eyeball out of the whole. Everything is pretty much measured out of everything that we do. This part is, I do kind of eyeball, but I still get it really, really close. I'm going to hold the crimp and just slide it down until I get, again, I'm holding the swivel with these fingers and I'm just pulling until I get about that much distance between my hook and the swivel. That means I'm going to have this huge big tag end back here. At this point, I'm going to hold the crimp, grab the hook with my fingers here, and I'm going to grab my fingernail clippers with my thumb and forefinger, grab the tag end with these other 2 fingers here, and cut, leaving about 1/4 to 1/2 inch. I'm going to save this. Notice I'm not dropping it. I'm not throwing it away. I'm going to lay this excess tag end over here. And you'll notice I've got a pile of these where I've been making these up. I'm going to save that excess tag end. I'm going to lay my fingernail clippers down and grab a cigarette lighter. I'm still holding and I've still got about 1/4 inch left over. I'm going to grab my cigarette lighter, and what I'm going to do is hold it close enough that it's going to melt the end of that monofilament into a big ball. Once I see that big ball form, I take the heat away, set my cigarette lighter down. I'm just going to let that cool off for a second. If you want to expedite the process or speed it up, lick your finger and just touch it a little bit there. But I want that ball cooled down into a big ball. And what that does, that ball is going to act as a positioning device for me. So in other words, I can pull it up against the end of that crimp and then pull the crimp down. And I used to pull these super tight up against that swivel. I've learned to I just give it some flexibility, give it some freedom, give it ability to spin around in there. But you'll see that ball is still sticking out this side of the crimp. What that does is that assures me, it gives me reassurance that all that line of this tag end is through and all that line is through that way. Now, I'll have a link to these crimpers in the description. These are some of the best crimpers that money can buy. They're a little pricey. You can buy cheaper ones. Again, when we're on a boat, we've spent all this other money on gas and everything else. I'm not cheapening out on crimpers. I want the best I can get. Put the crimp right in the middle of the crimpers, just like that. You'll notice I've got an equal amount sticking out on both sides here. Now all I've got to do is squeeze really hard and let go. You'll notice that it basically gives us, it looks, I don't know, I call it like a little whiskey barrel look. Kind of reminds me of a whiskey barrel you'll see in an antique store or at a restaurant or a Cracker Barrel or something like that. But it crimps that crimp down really super tight. I'm telling you guys that you cannot pull that apart. You will not break it. A fish won't break it. You can put this on anything you want to, and this rig will break somewhere, but it will not break at that crimp. It's a fantastic way to put your components of your rig together. It's so much better than tying to me. But anyway, guys, that is step number 1. We're going to break this video down into chapters. We're going to have chapter 1, snelling a hook. Chapter number 2, inserting your rattle or building the next part. Chapter number 3 will be finishing out the rig. We'll have all those chapters coming up. Just look in the description. So if you need to jump to any one part, but this is how it starts, guys, with a snelled Boss Cat 10-aught hook, crimped onto a number 2 barrel swivel. And every rig we make starts off with that simple process. So let's jump in and show you what we do from here. Okay guys, we're going to go to the next step now. So we've got the foundation of our rig done, which is the snelled hook leading up to this number 2 barrel swivel. So what I do now, remember the tag end that we saved from the original 18 inches? We're going to grab that, and again, it's all going to start with a crimp. You saw a close-up of the crimp process a while ago, so I'm just going to do this real quickly. Slide the crimp on, go through the opposite end of the barrel swivel, pull a little bit of tag in, go back through the crimp, give yourselves an inch or so, grab your cigarette lighter, melt you a ball on the end, and then what I do, you can sit here and just wait for that ball to cool off. I typically lick my finger and just tap it a couple times around just to make sure that it cools off. Now I can slide that crimp to the end of the ball, push that down, leave yourself just a little bit so that you're not so tight, gives you some room to swivel there. So you got the swivel in the middle, it can kind of swivel on all ends, not get bound up. Again, I'm going to take my crimping tool, position that crimping tool right in the middle so you see equal sides of the crimp itself on each side. It's equidistant in the middle. Crimp it real hard, squeeze it real hard to crimp it, and that thing is rock solid, will never, ever, ever, ever pull off. At this point, we're going to, no matter which way we go with our rig, I'm going to slide a sinker stopper on, and this is going to prohibit whatever we use, be it a Demon Dragon or our inline rattle. It's going to keep that from going in and banging up against and possibly weakening that rattle or Demon Dragon up against the crimp. So now it's got a soft surface to sit upon. I'm going to reach inside for this rig. I'm going to grab an inline rattle, slide it on. Now it's on your rag, and I'm going to go ahead and put my glasses on. As older age, it gets harder and harder to work up super close. I'm going to grab a crimp again. Now you see why I use so many crimps. It's so quick versus if I had to tie knots with all this, it'd be so much more. It'd be hard. So slide it on your 5 chain or 6 ball chain. Again, go back up through the crimp. And I pull it, I take up the tag in and pull this to where, I don't want it super tight, but that's about all the room where this inline rattle can go up and down against. So again, it's resting on that sinker stopper. It can go up and down that far, move up and down in the current underneath the water, spin around. Now I've got the ball chain on there. I'm going to, at this point, this is wasted line here, but you'll see when we use the Demon Dragon, I don't have this much waste. We'll do that next here in a second. So I'm going to grab my cigarette lighter, form a ball. Just touch it just a little bit on both sides with some saliva, just to help cool it down really quickly. Again, I can see that ball on this side, so I know I've got the full length of line going through this way and the full length of line coming out that way. That's really kind of why I do that. Again, position the crimping tool in the middle of the crimp, give it a good squeeze, and we're done. This is really, at this point, we're mostly done with all the hard stuff, all the stuff that's time consuming. This is really the next phase, if you will. So again, if we're breaking this into chapters, this is really kind of chapter 2. Now I'll show you, I mentioned in the beginning, I stressed that we kind of have a couple different styles of bumping rigs. We showed you with an inline rattle and also with the Demon Dragon blank. Let's show you how we prepare our Demon Dragon blanks, and we'll show you, again, building the rig with the Demon Dragon blank or the actual Demon Dragon itself. Either one, it's the exact same process, but let's show you that next real quick, and then we'll move on to another chapter and finish out this bumping rig. Okay guys, you may have seen earlier where I had all these blanks hanging up on the pegboard. This is how they come from Amazon.com. Again, the link will be in the description. And they just come as clear blanks. In fact, you can actually see the rattle inside the blank there. And they come like this, and then you've got the stick-on eyes that come on a card of paper there that you peel off and stick on. Now, when I first got these for the first year or so or more, I just put them on like this. I built my rigs with them just clear like this. I figure 40, 50 foot of water, 30 foot of water in the Mississippi. Those are our average depths that we fish, anywhere from 30 to 50. Fish aren't seeing this anyway. I mean, I didn't care if it was clear, if it was chrome, if it was whatever color. So I didn't do anything with it other than just build my rigs with it. Well, I got to noticing later on that this thing was filling up with water. And one of the purposes, one of the big purposes is to add a rattle, right? The second purpose is so that it kind of helps float the bait a little bit. And if it's filling with water inside, well, you lose the ability for it to float anything at all. So talked with a buddy of mine, and he suggested, you know what, take it and spray paint that, and that will help seal. You'll see there's a seam. These come in two halves and they're glued together, right? You got your left half and your right half. If you paint this, what he told me, paint it, and it will seal that seam all the way around it. So ever since then, we've been painting it and sealing it. I tried all kinds of different, I used to paint them black, I did everything else. And then I just kind of settled on, actually what we use is, I believe it's called it's key lime. I just bought this at Walmart, Rust-Oleum paint. I would say it's $1.97. With inflation, it's probably more like $4.97 today. Actually, this is actually a pretty good paint. It probably is a more expensive paint. But I did that because, well, if you notice, I kind of got a theme going on here with our greens and our chartreuses and our limes. And that dates back to my childhood of fishing. I used to run up and down a lot of ditch banks. You guys may call them creeks or whatever. And I discovered that, man, I could catch a lot of predator fish, green sunfish, goggle eye, rock bass, largemouth bass. Just seemed to have a propensity to striking chartreuse. I caught crappie. Gosh, I caught so many crappie off chartreuse jigs. So, you know, if I'm building stuff for a predator fish, and it just kind of harkens back to my childhood a little bit, I just started building everything with chartreuse. So if you guys pull up and you pull up a rig from 40 foot down and it's all chartreuse like this, well, you can say, hey, I probably found one of Greg's rigs, right? So that's one of the reasons why we went with this. Let's show you what we do to this. We actually, you'll see this pair of needle nose pliers here is covered with paint, both primer and this key lime here. So I get it and I hold it just like this on one of the ends. And then we're going to walk outside real quickly and I'll show you that I'm going to coat it with a good heavy coat of primer. And then we're going to let it sit and cool off and dry. And then I'm going to come back and hit it with a second coat of the final finish coat, which is this key lime. So let's go outside and show you this real quickly. Okay guys, this probably is a $1.97 Walmart Rattle spray can paint. And this is just a gray primer. Again, our main goal here is to seal up the two halves so that it won't allow water to seep into the actual blank. And I kind of got used to using primer and then finishing it off with the lime green. I figure you let that dry and then come back with lime green. There's a pretty good chance you're going to seal up all the cracks. So let's show you what we do to let it dry. Okay guys, so I built this rack. If your wives ever complain about not throwing away any scrap wood or anything, here's an example of it paid off once. So I actually took some scrap wood one time and built this nifty little drying rack. So what this is, these are just cheap hooks from Walmart sporting goods section. I actually took a grinder and ground off the back barbs and then screwed the eyes onto it. And then I can just take and hang this eyelet here. And then there's nothing touching. You can't get any runs. I used to I'd try to wait as long as I could and then lay that blank onto the workbench surface. And inevitably, every time I did, I never waited long enough. I would pull that blank up and it would stick. It would have marks in it. And so I finally got frustrated and came up with this little design here. And this has worked out beautifully. I mean, if you're doing more blanks, or you can make it longer, you can make multiples of these. But typically, you know, 5 or 6 at a time. I usually got them in some various stages of drying. Like this one over here is completely dry. This one's dry. And somewhere in the middle of it, I'll just come and get them and then continue the process. So like I said, this one is dry. I did it this morning. So let's go ahead and put the final finishing coat of the lime green on there. And again, the main purpose, we're sealing up these seams. I'm going to start with those seams and then kind of finish it off. And multiple light coats, don't get too heavy, and then we'll just let it dry on the drying rack. Again, guys, there are very few things that I can kind of claim as my own little invention. I'm actually kind of proud of that. That works out extremely well. So take note of that, and I highly encourage you to build one of those if you're going to do this with these Demon Dragon blanks. Okay, guys, so we've got a dried Demon Dragon blank here now. And so, again, I told you, we've got these little eyes here. You just peel them off and stick them on. Is this necessary? Absolutely not. But I'm just kind of a little OCD. I've got them, and I think it makes it look pretty cool. Now, let's pick up with, again, we're going to grab one of these long tag ends that we cut off from that initial leader, right? That's why we saved all these. We're going to grab, again, a high seas crimp, stick it on. We're going to go over to the top of this barrel swivel again, just like we made our inline swivel or our inline rattle a while ago. Exact same procedure. We're going to make a big ball. Again, this is, once you get this procedure down, guys, it kind of flies. I come out here and I can build, I can build 10 or 15 of these in an hour pretty easy, and that's going to keep you up. That'll keep you ahead of all of your break-offs, no problem. Again, I'm going to kind of dampen it a little bit, slide it into the end, and then pull it tight. Not super tight. I'm leaving just a little bit of room for it to swivel there. Grab my crimps, center the crimp right where I can see a little bit of the crimp on both sides. Give it a good squeeze. And again, we're going to start off exactly the same way we did with a sinker stopper. Slide that down. Now here's where the difference is. I'm going to move the little eyeballs out of the way. This time, rather than putting an inline rattle on, I'm going to put the Demon Dragon blank on. And this will be the same as whether it's the Demon Dragon blank or it's the real official Demon Dragon. Okay, both of them work exactly the same way. In fact, let's go ahead and build it with the real Demon Dragon. I'm going to go through the back of this eye here, pull it so it's down there, and I've got all the line to work with, and then go back up the top. So what I'm doing is, there are people that will attach the leader to the end, and they'll either crimp it or tie it off here, and then start a new leader up here, and they're relying on those screws for the integrity and the strength of your whole rig, if that makes sense. Well, some of these fish that we go after, and I'm still going after the fish that we haven't caught yet, right? Obviously, like most trophy catfishermen, our goal is the hundo, the 100-pounder. I get a 100-pounder fish on here. I don't want to rely on the integrity of those screws on either end of the Demon Dragon blank. I want this line to still be attached all the way through. That's just me personally. There are people who do it the other way around, but I run this line through there all the way up to the second top eyelet and then bring it out. That way I know I still have the full integrity of this 80-pound leader, and I'm not relying on screws in the Demon Dragon. Now, again, what I'm going to do is grab the crimp again, insert the top of my leader line through, grab my ball chain again. Now you'll see that we're back to the exact same procedure I was with the inline rattle. The only difference is we replaced the inline rattle with the Demon Dragon blank. I'm going to go back through the crimp, shove it on through until I've got, a little bit. In fact, at this point, I've got a little bit too much, so I'm going to trim this up. But you'll notice I'm only trimming. In fact, I'm going to pick this up and show you. That's all the waste I've had out of this. So when using this 18-inch and the methods that we use, I waste very little line. Not that line's super expensive, but it's just kind of neat to know how efficient you can be with this process. So again, I'm going to burn a ball into this end, set it down, let it cool for just a couple seconds. Go ahead and touch it with my wet finger. Slide that ball to the end, and now I can slide it back down that way. Again, I'm going to grab the crimping tool. Now you can see why I'm willing to pay a little bit more extra money for a crimping tool, because you use it a lot, and it gives you the strength of everything. So there you go, guys. That part is done. So the only difference between inserting an inline rattle and the Demon Dragon blank is whichever one you use, and then I bring that crimp down to the end of it. So bumping rig number 1, bumping rig number 2. So that's why I say we get 3, almost 4 rigs out of it, depending on what we want. Now, if you're sitting there going, man, I think I would never bump with that much stuff on my line. Hey, great. You don't have to put all that stuff on. You don't have to put a rattle at all. And sometimes, especially my son Gabe, he's like, man, let's do away with the rattles today. In fact, maybe I'll be bumping with a full-blown Demon Dragon, and he will bump with a rig that doesn't have any line, any rattles at all. It's just literally up to a ball chain swivel and then up to the leader line, and that's it. So if you want to count that, there's 3 rigs we make with it. But anyway, so you can adjust, modify, whatever you want, but again, take the premise, the foundation, and this will give you a lot of different variations. So again, we're going to move to the next chapter now and just show you how we finish it off. Okay guys, we're going to kind of almost wrap up here. We're going to show you this, like I said, this was the hard part to get to here. This is the easy part, is finishing out a rig. And again, we're going to take our bulk spool here. And again, we're going to use our 2 marks to get it to 18 inches, get our leader line. We're going to snip off an 18-inch piece here, move that back out of the way. Grab a crimp again, insert it into the crimp. And then this time, we're going to just grab and go through the top end of the ball chain. Again, we would be doing this regardless of which model or which variation we made, be it an inline rattle or the one with the Demon Dragon, or honestly, if you decided to do one without any of that paraphernalia, without all that extra bling, if you will. So again, I'm going to kind of just touch the ball, make sure. I'm going to slide the crimp up to that, and now I can just pull. You'll see I can pull that down to where I want it to and position it. That's why I call that ball a positioning device. Now, I'm just going to, again, center the crimping tool in the middle of the crimp. Hopefully you've got that concept by now. Super easy. Give it a good squeeze, and now I've got an 18-inch leader, and you can see I'm almost completed here. Now, this is where I'm going to grab my 3-way swivel. Remember when early on you're probably like, why did you say you top it off with that? Because it's kind of the top of the leader. Now you'll notice here that the crane swivel or the 3-way swivel has a main swivel coming down, and this secondary swivel, it's the same swivel, but it goes around the top edge here, and it comes off to the side. That's actually what we want to attach the leader to, is the side swivel, not the main swivel. So again, the side swivel spins around on top of the main swivel. We want to attach to the side. And we'll explain why I do that here in a second as I build this. Again, I'm going to get a crimp. Again, hold it up, go to the side swivel, go through, come back in, stick a little tag through, form a ball. This is why you can see the steps are really redundant, other than a few key differences. Again, I'm going to slide this up to that heated ball I just melted on there, slide it down, and now I'm going to crimp. Okay, why do I attach the leader to the secondary ball? You would think you'd want your leader going straight down, because this top loop here, where this rotates around and around and around, that top loop is where I'm going to attach my main line going back to my rod and reel at, okay? And you would, the normal person, the normal thought process would be, well, if this is where my main line's attached to, then I want my hook and everything attached to that. Well, here's why I do not do that. Here's why I attach it to this. When we're bumping, we want as direct a contact as we can. We're going to actually tie our sinker dropper to this, and then that duo clip in our sinker. So it's going to be in line, everything's in line. And I want the best, most immediate feedback I can get when we pick up that weight. And again, this is what these weights, I'm just grabbing one here. That weight, when we pick that weight up and we're picking it up, dropping it, picking it up, dropping it on the bottom of the Mississippi or wherever we're fishing at, Tennessee River, doesn't matter. I want to feel this as best as possible. Then this is actually floating off behind it, okay? But I am picking that sinker up and down with my rod tip. I want it to be in a direct line with that, and this is secondary. Now, again, this is 165-pound brake strength, all that. So if you go, well, I don't trust it on this side one. It's probably the strongest component of everything we've put together, okay, if that makes sense. So this, again, this is The leader itself, the leader line, the rig is pretty much finished. I will add the sinker dropper here, and here's where we start. I do this 18 inches and I go back about 4 or 5 inches. Just, there's no science to this, okay? I'm just kind of guesstimating. But I will grab a duo clip here, and this is where I talked about, I learned to, I can't remember if I did or not, but I grew up fishing with trilane. On the back of those boxes of trilane was an instructional diagram on how to make what they call a trilane knot. Well, I've kind of since learned that it's a double improved clinch knot. Go around 4, 5, 6 times, go back through. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that, because you can Google a double improved clinch knot or a trilane knot. A lot of people still, the old timers like me, still call it a trilane knot. But I will use that to attach this duo clip. Now I've got this on my length of this, again, 30-pound mono here, 80-pound mono on my main line. And I do that on purpose because I want it to break. If my sinker dropper gets hung up before this does, I can break off my sinker dropper and save or salvage this and bring this up with it. And then all I have to do is tie a new sinker dropper on. So again, I'm going to attach my main line here. That leaves this to attach my sinker dropper. And again, I just do this again with another double improved clinch knot or trilane knot. I go through once, come back again, make a loop, pull it down tight. And here's why I do the duo clip first. I can manage how long this looks just by pulling it up or down. If I want a short one, I just pull it here. If I want it longer, and wherever I feel comfortable with that, let's say I usually start off about that length, about where the duo clip is just about the top of that ball chain. A lot of time, or maybe even a little bit less. That's just what we've learned to become very comfortable with. Now I can adjust my knot and tie it right there. Again, I pulled that, I've got that loop. I'm going to go around 6 or 7 times. 4 or 5, it really doesn't matter on this because, again, I want this drop, the sinker dropper, to break before the main line. Give it a quick tug, use my fingernail clippers, that's trash. So again, here we go. There's the top that I'm going to tie it off to the main line with. There's my sinker dropper, and let me show you how I mentioned these are so easy because we change out our weights a lot during the course of a fishing trip. We may start off fishing a particular stretch with 3 or 4 pound or 3 or 4 ounce cannonballs. We may decide, whoa, that's speeding out way too fast. Of course, obviously, there's other things that you can do. You can slow your boat down, you can speed your boat up, but we control a lot of the speed that we fish out with our weights. And so my same rig, I can switch from a 2 ounce to a 3 ounce to 5 ounce that simple, that quickly. And again, there's people that do it with kind of girth hitching a loop around, but man, sometimes it's hard to get it through different spots, and that duo clip is just so nice. But again, you'll see a straight line. If this was my fishing line here, going off to the right, we want that in a straight line with our cannonball, and that's what's happening. This is actually floating up behind it in the current, and that's what a fish comes up and sees and grabs from behind. So that's our bumping rig, guys. We hand tie this part, the sinker dropper, on in both spots, because we'll break this off several times, sometimes in a fishing tournament, or we just may say, you know what, maybe the fish aren't up that high. Maybe we'll shorten this. I didn't mean to slam that down. Maybe we'll shorten this up to about here, shorten our sinker dropper. Now our sinker's bumping, instead of bumping up there, it's bumping down here, and the fish, it's closer. Maybe the fish are buried up in the mud that day. Maybe we need to shorten our leaders. Maybe we need to lengthen them, and we'll carry, you know, we've got several spools of 30-pound trilane on the boat, and we can just make a new leader. We can do that really, really quickly. But that's our bumping rig, guys. Now, how do we convert it over to a anchor rig or a dragging rig? We don't put the sinker dropper on. I'm just going to set this to the side. We do grab one of the duo clip locks, okay? And instead of tying it on here, you'll see there's a little, and we'll show you a close-up of this, there's a little curve there where it forms. I'll just grab that, the swivel, go underneath that and pull real hard. and pull it right on through, and now I'm gonna put it back on. So now that dual clip is directly on there. So again, remember we talked about having a dragging rig. I'm gonna grab one of our big old dragon weights here, and we're gonna do a video later on how we custom make these, because you can't buy a dragon weight that heavy, not readily, for sure. Again, we just clip on here, close it up. If this was our main line going on here, this is what's pulling through all the structure, and then our float is floating our bait up just like that. Again, that's how we're getting two or three rigs out of basically one leader. We use big coin sinkers, and we'll clip on right there. Now, if we wanted to, we could have a sinker dropper there, almost like we had our bumping rig. And if you want it to float up a little bit, you could do that. A lot of times when we're anchoring, we'll just anchor a coin. We'll attach a coin sinker right here. Let the coin sinker rest right on the ground, and this will be, you know, right back here. When we're anchor fishing, that's one of the most common ways we do it. But you could add a short length of dropper length right there, dropper leader, if you wanted to. We prefer the coin sinkers. I started off with no rolls. I started off with, you know, all those kinds that you could put on, but you can't change them out very easily. And coin sinker, I can go from a 3 ounce to a 5 ounce to a 10 ounce to a 16 ounce just that quickly if the current needs it. Sometimes if we're fanning out in a big spread behind a dike or a log jam or a tree root there, something like that, if I know there's some slow current areas, I'll put a 5 or an 8 on, and if they're on the outside bends or outside edges, that current's just ripping, I may put a 12 or a 16 or maybe 2 10s or something like that on here. And again, that's another reason why we prefer those dual clips. You can stack weights on them real easy, whereas it's harder to stack it if you're trying to go through it with a loop, a dropper loop, and then girth hitch everything. So anyway, guys, hope that helps. We're going to finish this up really quickly with showing you our storage system that I alluded to earlier. And then we're basically going to wrap this up and call her done. So hope this is helping you out tremendously. Thanks, guys. Okay, guys, this is the last part here. I'm just going to show you our storage system. I just got this one in yesterday. You can see it's brand new. So the manufacturer name, Bass Mafia. It's the blade coffin. I've got one on the boat we'll show you here in just a second. This one's stiff because it's brand new. But here's what the inside looks like when you order one. Now, the one I have on the boat, I'll show you, we actually put extra, you can buy extra ones of these sleeves here that slide up and down on this rod, and it is completely full. I probably got 40 or 50 of our rigs on there. But here's basically what I do, guys. I think this is our, again, just a normal inline rattle bumping rig. I take it and hold the hook and just go around and around my fingers like this. End up with the dropper looper right there, and I just pinch it and hold it until I can grab it, and I'll grab one of these. And these are always a little stiff when you get them brand new. Sometimes you got to insert your fingers, but you can see, you can pinch it like that. These are little strips of like a little band of aluminum or something in there. You can pinch it like almost like the old time coin wallet, and I just drop it in there. Allow it to go flat, and there's one. You'll see when we're going to jump over in the boat in just a minute. I'll show you that thing is completely full of the ones in, and I just, when we break off, we just reach in there and grab a new one. So now, with the ones that have the Demon Dragons, you know, that's a little too big to put in there with the Demon Dragons. At least it is for me. So what we do is I do the same concept, but I have all these little quart-sized gallon Ziploc bags, and I open this up and I store these Demon Dragon rigs in here. And it doesn't matter if it's a bumping Demon Dragon or one that's made for anchoring or dragging. We'll show you what we do. We buy these little storage systems, 10 for $10. Let's jump over and show you what it looks like on the boat. Okay, guys, we fish out of a Sea Arc Easy Cat. Has these huge couches. Love that versatility. We go to the lake, have lake days and stuff like that, but gives us a lot of storage here. You'll see this is one of the older systems here that we have that I just showed you. And I'll just show you that when we break off, here's all, we can just go through there, grab a rig, and literally there's probably 40 or 50 or shoot, there might be 60 rigs on there. And then here's, I told you we buy these Went to Walmart, literally got these off the storage container aisle at Walmart. 10 of these cost me $10. And you'll see, I've got them labeled for bumping, which is that rig that we just had. And so, there we go, that's it. So, all those Ziploc bags go in there. Now, the ones that have the duo clip instead of a sinker dropper, those are our anchor and dragging rigs. So, all I gotta do, grab one of these, open it up. Again, got a bunch of them in there. So, that's what we've settled on as a storage system. Works extremely well for us, guys. If you're wondering, well, how do you, we're gonna finish it up with this. What happens when you break off? Well, obviously, we just reach in there and grab what we need. But remember early in the video, I said there's one other thing that we order from Macy's Fish and Finds. Well, it's this right here. This is a McMahon snap or a scissor snap. And you'll see, we tie it on there's our mainline braid. We tie it on with a polymer knot. And this scissor snap, you just squeeze it. And you can see right there, it gives you an opening to put whatever you want. So we take the top of that 3-way swivel, squeeze it, put it on, and we can change out a rig that quickly. So guys, we've given you every one of our secrets that we can possibly think of. All you gotta do now is go find the fish and catch them. We'll see you around.